Every single night, your brain does something incredible and then immediately makes you forget it. You can probably remember getting into bed, maybe checking your phone one last time, turning off the lights, closing your eyes, but almost nobody remembers the exact moment they actually fall asleep. It's as if that moment simply disappears. Think about it. You remember waking up this morning. You remember brushing your teeth. You probably even remember what you had for lunch yesterday. Yet somehow, one of the biggest transitions your brain experiences every single day is completely missing from your memory. So where did it go? Did your brain erase it? Were you unconscious too quickly to notice? Or is something even stranger happening? To answer that question, we first need to understand how memories are normally created. Right now, as you're watching this video, millions of neurons inside your brain are constantly exchanging electrical signals. Every sound you hear, every word you understand, every image you see is being processed by networks spread across different parts of your brain. But experiencing something isn't enough to remember it. Before an experience becomes a lasting memory, your brain has to encode it. One of the most important structures involved in this process is a small, seahorse-shaped region called the hippocampus. Think of the hippocampus as your brain's temporary recording studio. Throughout the day, it receives information from your senses and begins organizing those experiences into memories that can later be stored across the brain. Without it, new experiences simply wouldn't stick. Scientists know this because of famous neurological cases involving people who could remember events from years ago, but were unable to form new long-term memories after damage to the hippocampus. Every conversation they had, every meal they ate, every new face they met would slowly disappear from memory because the brain could no longer save those experiences properly. Normally, however, your hippocampus is working almost constantly. So why does it suddenly fail during the exact moment you fall asleep? The surprising answer is, it doesn't fail at all. Instead, your entire brain begins changing the way it operates. And that transition happens much more gradually than most people realize. Sleep isn't like flipping off a light switch. It's much more like watching the sun set. At first, everything still seems bright. Then the light slowly fades. Objects become harder to see. Eventually, without noticing exactly when it happened, night has arrived. Your brain enters sleep in almost the same way. There isn't one magical second where you're awake and then instantly asleep. Instead, your awareness slowly begins to dissolve. And that's where the mystery really begins. As you begin drifting towards sleep, your brain doesn't simply shut down. It starts changing channels. For most of the day, your brain is dominated by beta waves, fast electrical patterns, associated with attention, problem-solving, and conscious thinking. Close your laptop. Turn off the lights. Lie down in bed. Within minutes, those patterns begin to slow. Beta waves gradually give way to alpha waves, which are linked to relaxed wakefulness. You're still awake. You can still hear sounds around you. You could still answer someone's question. But something subtle has already begun to change. Then, your brain enters the very first stage of sleep. Scientists call it N1 sleep. And this is where things become surprisingly strange. N1 isn't fully awake, but it isn't deep sleep either. It's a transition, a narrow bridge between consciousness and unconsciousness. During this stage, your thoughts often become fragmented. Instead of following a logical conversation, your mind begins jumping from one unrelated image to another. A face you've never seen, a place that doesn't exist, a sentence that makes no sense. These fleeting experiences are called hypnagogic hallucinations. Despite the name, they're completely normal. Up to many healthy people experience them from time to time. You might suddenly hear your name being called, see flashes of light, or briefly feel as though you're floating. Sometimes, you may even feel like you're falling. And then, your entire body jerks. This sudden movement is known as a hypnic jerk. Almost everyone has experienced one. Scientists still debate exactly why it happens, but one leading idea is that as your muscles relax rapidly during sleep onset, the brain briefly misinterprets that relaxation as a loss of balance and triggers a reflexive muscle contraction. It's startling, but in healthy individuals, it's usually harmless. These strange sensations reveal something important. The transition into sleep isn't a clean break. Different parts of your brain are changing at different speeds. Some networks are already becoming less active. Others are still processing sights, sounds, and internal thoughts. It's like watching a city at night. One neighborhood goes dark. Another still has lights on. A few streets remain busy. Eventually, almost everything becomes quiet. Your brain falls asleep in much the same way. And while all of this is happening, the hippocampus, the brain structure responsible for helping form new episodic memories, is becoming less effective at recording ongoing experiences, not because it's broken, but because the brain is shifting priorities. Instead of focusing on creating new memories from the outside world, it begins preparing for one of sleep's most important jobs, processing the memories you've already made. In other words, your brain starts organizing yesterday instead of recording the final few moments of today. That's why the exact instant you fall asleep usually isn't saved as a lasting memory. There was never a complete recording to remember in the first place. But here's where the mystery becomes even deeper. If your brain stops recording new experiences, how is it able to create dreams that can feel so vivid, emotional, and sometimes more real than reality itself? If your brain stops recording new memories as you fall asleep, then why can you sometimes remember your dreams in incredible detail? At first, that sounds like a contradiction. But the answer lies in the different stages of sleep. Most people imagine sleep as one long, uninterrupted state. In reality, your brain cycles through several distinct stages every night. First comes N1, the light transition into sleep. Then N2, where your body relaxes even further and outside sounds become less likely to wake you. After that comes N3, often called deep sleep. During this stage, your brain produces slow, powerful electrical waves. Your breathing slows. Your muscles relax. Your body repairs tissues, supports the immune system, and performs many of the restorative processes that keep you healthy. Finally, your brain enters one of the most fascinating stages of all, REM sleep, rapid eye movement sleep. This is when the brain becomes surprisingly active again. In fact, some regions of your brain are almost as active during REM sleep as they are when you're awake. Your eyes move rapidly beneath your eyelids. Your heart rate becomes less regular, and your brain creates the vivid dreams that many people remember after waking. So why can dreams sometimes be remembered, but not the moment you fell asleep? Because the timing is completely different. When you first drift into sleep, the systems responsible for forming new episodic memories are becoming less effective. The brain is transitioning away from recording the outside world. But if you wake up during or shortly after a vivid dream, especially during REM sleep, that dream can sometimes be transferred into memory before it fades away. It's a bit like opening a document just before your computer shuts down. If you save it in time, it's still there when you restart. If you don't, it's gone. That's why some dreams disappear within seconds of waking, while others stay with you for years. But dreaming isn't the only strange thing that happens while you're asleep. Have you ever been convinced you stayed awake almost the entire night, only to discover that hours had actually passed? Scientists call this sleep state misperception. It's more common than most people realize. Some people briefly wake several times during the night. Each awakening is remembered. The longer stretches of actual sleep often aren't. As a result, the brain stitches together those remembered moments and creates the impression that sleep never really happened. In reality, they may have slept far more than they believed. Your brain isn't deliberately lying. It's simply reconstructing events from the memories it actually managed to store. This reveals something fascinating. Memory isn't a perfect recording of reality. It's a reconstruction. Every experience you remember has already been edited by your brain. Details are strengthened. Others disappear. Some are unintentionally changed over time. The missing memory of falling asleep is simply one of the clearest examples of that process. It feels mysterious because it happens every single night, and yet almost everyone experiences it. Scientists are still working to understand exactly how consciousness fades during sleep. On set, there isn't a single sleep switch hidden somewhere inside the brain. Instead, different networks responsible for attention, awareness, sensory processing, and memory gradually reduce their activity at different rates. In other words, your conscious experience doesn't suddenly stop. It slowly unravels. And somewhere during that gradual transition, the brain quietly stops creating the continuous stream of memories that lets you later say, "This is the exact moment I fell asleep." But perhaps the biggest mystery isn't why you forget that moment. It's what that forgotten moment reveals about consciousness itself. Because if your awareness can quietly disappear every single night, what does that say about the nature of being conscious in the first place? Every night, your brain performs one of the most extraordinary transformations in nature. It takes a fully conscious, self-aware human being and gently guides them into unconsciousness. Yet almost nobody notices the exact moment it happens. For centuries, philosophers wondered where consciousness goes when we sleep. Today, neuroscience offers part of the answer. Consciousness doesn't disappear all at once. It slowly fades as communication between different brain networks changes. The areas that help you pay attention to the outside world become less active. The systems that create new episodic memories become less effective. Meanwhile, other regions begin preparing for a completely different task, maintaining your brain. Because while you think you're doing nothing, your brain is remarkably busy. Throughout the night, it strengthens important memories while allowing less useful information to fade. It helps regulate emotions. It supports learning. It restores energy. And during deep sleep, your brain even activates a specialized waste clearance network, known as the glymphatic system, which helps remove metabolic byproducts that accumulate during the day. Researchers are still investigating exactly how this process relates to long-term brain health, but it appears to be one of sleep's essential housekeeping functions. In other words, sleep isn't your brain shutting down. It's your brain switching jobs. And that's why the missing moment of falling asleep is so fascinating. Your brain isn't trying to hide it from you. It simply isn't prioritizing turning that transition into a lasting memory. Imagine filming a documentary. At some point, the camera operator stops recording because the next stage isn't about capturing new footage. It's about organizing everything that's already been filmed. Your brain works in a surprisingly similar way. As you drift towards sleep, it gradually shifts from recording new experiences to processing the ones you've already had. The result is a small gap in your personal timeline, a gap every healthy brain creates. Ironically, if you could remember the exact instant you fell asleep every single night, scientists might wonder whether something unusual was happening. The missing memory isn't evidence that your brain failed. It's evidence that it's working largely as expected. Of course, sleep isn't identical for everyone. Stress, caffeine, medications, sleep disorders, irregular schedules. All of these can influence how quickly you fall asleep and how aware you feel during that transition. People with insomnia, for example, may genuinely spend long periods awake before sleeping, or they may experience sleep state misperception, where they underestimate how much they actually slept. That's why occasional differences in sleep experiences are completely normal, while persistent sleep problems deserve evaluation by a healthcare professional. But for most of us, the mystery has a surprisingly simple explanation. The reason you can't remember falling asleep isn't because there's a missing piece of your memory. It's because your brain is quietly crossing a boundary where creating new memories becomes less effective. And by the time sleep fully arrives, the moment has already slipped away. So tonight, as you lie in bed, try one more time to catch yourself falling asleep. Pay attention to every thought, every sound, every breath. You might notice your thoughts becoming stranger. You might feel your body relaxing. You may even experience a brief hypnic jerk. But chances are, you'll wake up tomorrow morning with the same question you started with. When exactly did I fall asleep? And now you'll know why that question is almost impossible to answer. Not because your brain forgot, but because, in order to sleep well, it had already begun doing something far more important. If you enjoyed uncovering one of your brain's hidden mysteries, there are countless other everyday experiences that become even more fascinating once science explains what's really happening. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.